Welcome to Dad Hammer, Bolters and Booze, where we discuss all things Warhammer while staying hydrated with an adult beverage. I am David, the Warboss, and I am joined by the most generic Space Marine in the Imperium, Mr. Medicae Steve. Steve, how we doing?
We're doing great, man. It is summer vacation officially.
Officially.
Last day of school for the kids. Yeah, last day of school for the kids. I feel like I'm on summer break now.
Yeah, I don't. My son came in, and I was working. I work from home, and he's off school, and he walked in. I came out just to get a drink of water, and to make some coffee, and I was out for maybe 5 minutes, and he ran into the room and got in on his PC, and he's like, "Dad, what are you doing?" I'm like, I'm working, bud. I'm working." He kicked him back out, and he got all mad because he had to interrupt his game of Apex Legends. So
It's gonna be a rough summer, man.
First world teenager problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but happy summer. And I now get to not have to take my son to school in the morning for a good 2.5 months. It's pretty great for me. So
it's like being single again, isn't it? Not really.
No, not really. I don't want to be single again. Actually, I don't. No. I don't want those days anymore.
No.
Well, thank you for all of you listening. We're very excited to talk. We got lots to talk about today. Actually, throughout the week, when all the 10th edition announcements, and those have been the past few weeks, they've done a really good job of releasing the content about factions and whatnot. But then they've sprinkled in some extra events, and so we've got that here. Where there's a ton of stuff to talk about. But first, we'll hit you with some 10th edition faction reveals, where they've released more factions and more rules. The Tau Empire, Chaos Knights, Custodes, Orks, and Thousand Sons. And then we'll follow that with a ton of video game announcement news from the Warhammer Skulls 2023 event. Really cool stuff, lots of awesome game announcements and some things, and we'll give you some impressions from the trailers that we saw. So lots of great Warhammer stuff to talk about. Thank you for listening to our show, and if you like what you're hearing, make sure to rate, follow, subscribe on wherever you listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. You can also find us on social media: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. And we also have a website at dadhammerpodcast.com. So check us out there, and you'll see all of our content, pictures, and how-tos and things that we post on our various social media accounts. But first, we are going to start with the most important part of every Dad Hammer podcast, and that is, what are we drinking? I will go first, Steve, because you've got the magical cocktail. Ooh, magical. You see, I buried the lead a little bit. You got the magical cocktail this evening. I have one that's a little plain Jane. I just have an old fashioned. It's just got some Woodford in it with a little bit of a mixer, and the old fashioned is my drink of choice. So, and so much so that I just eyeball it now. I don't do all of the the measurements with this guy. Just throwing some.
It's hard to improve upon.
It is, and it's hard to mess up too. I've found. You just throw in some bourbon. You can do the syrup, or a lot of times I just use the mixer now. And then for me, I like a lot of the maraschino cherries, so I'll put 2 or 3 of those in there. That's like if you like drinking the milk after the cereal. I mean, I do. So for me, the cherries at the bottom, they're like, that's the end of the drink. I've got
it's one for the road.
That's right. I've got my old fashioned here. Very, very enjoyable. Steve, what are you drinking tonight?
Oh, it's a doozy. This is totally for our mutual friend who's a T-Sons player and is just now getting some love on the whole new 10th edition release stuff. Mm-hmm. We're going to call this one the Ahriman, or AKA the Circus Magician.
Wait. Let me go back here, because if our friends listening too, I think he calls it Ahriman.
Oh,
so it's either Ahriman or Ahriman. I'm gonna go with Ahriman, but you know what?
Fair enough.
Just in case he's listening to this, we'll just call it the Ahriman, because it sounds a little more insulting to him.
It's just gonna
drive the knife in a little more. Yeah, the Circus Magician,
Well,
though. I like that one too.
yeah. And in all fairness, the original drink's name is the Drunken Witch. So it all works together fairly well. So the recipe is 2 ounces of vodka, 2 ounces of blue Curacao.
Curacao.
Let's go Ahriman or Ahriman or however you like. 2 ounces of Grenadine, and then top it off with some Sprite and a cherry for garnish. To be fair, it's pretty good. We'll give this one a middle of the road. How about that?
Yeah.
It's it's really like an old fashioned in a way, but not bourbon and vodka. So I was kind of hoping for something along those lines, but because it's vodka, you get more of the just sweet, if that matters.
Yeah, and it's with the blue Curacao and the Grenadine. It's got I would assume a purplish look to it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool actually.
Well,
so it also works.
Very spooky. Very and the background is the Thousand Sons. One of our mutual friends is a Thousand Sons player, and whenever I play against someone in Warhammer, I always and it's all in love. Okay, we're friends, but I always try to come up with an appropriately disparaging nickname for the army that I'm playing against. So it's I always called his Thousand Sons army the Circus Magicians. I don't know why. I guess because they were flamboyantly colored and they look like they might be, getting right off the trapeze or something. And the big
blue and gold stripes.
Yeah, it just and they were, of course, a lot of psychic abilities and whatnot. Now he may murder me, so that would go into the murder clown territory. But I thought Circus Magicians, is appropriate.
Yeah,
so I always like to
good.
have, I think I did for Dark Angels, maybe the Christmas ornaments, because you look like little Christmas trees.
We went there, or Christmas elves. That worked pretty
Christmas
good.
elves, that's right. I think I like that better.
My favorite was the Raven Wing bikes I had. You were the Stranger Things kids. Still love that one because it was just all the guys on bikes. I was like, I can't even hate that. It's good.
Yeah, your little biker squad, and you may come in with mass weapons of doom, but I just like to picture harmless little children running up, around the corner that I'm going to destroy. That's not a bad thing. So, all right. Well, I think we've done a really good job of insulting Thousand Sons. And
not just people we know.
Yeah, I know.
But maybe everybody.
Well, okay. So all this in good fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously, and I definitely make fun of my own armies too. So what goes around comes around.
For what it's worth, it's in an official Dad Hammer multi-use tactical drink cup.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
a little branding,
custom made by Mrs. Dad Hammer. Yeah, it's.
I got mine delivered today.
Cool. It's a nice cup.
It is a very nice cup with the bottle opener. Yeah, the bottle opener on the bottom. I got an appropriate eye roll from my wife when she looked at it. She's like, "Really?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but look how nice this is." She's like, "Okay, it is pretty nice."
It's a quality piece.
It is. Well, enjoy your Ahriman, your Ahriman cocktail, your Circus Magician. I will enjoy my old fashioned. Cheers, Steve, and bottoms up.
Abracadabra.
All right. Now that we begun our hydration journey, let's get into some news. And there's a lot to cover this week. We're going to start off with the new factions that were shown off for 10th edition. Of course, if you've been following, we've been covering all of the factions that have been released, the new rules, the new stuff that's coming out for 10th edition. They're not giving a full, it's not every single data sheet. It's not all the stats. They're just hitting some highlights for each army to give you the flavor, which I actually enjoy. I can just look at the high level overview, the executive summary, if you will, of each faction, which I appreciate because I have 5 armies and that's plenty for me. Well, at least for now, maybe tomorrow I'll say, I could probably use another one. That's the way this goes.
There's never too much.
No, exactly. So we'll start with the Tau Empire. I I don't play Tau. I've got a friend that does. I don't think he's actually played it. He's just painted them all up. But the Tau have always been a bit of an intriguing faction for me. Cyborg robots. I know you can take the helmets
Mm-hmm.
off and they look like the blue aliens, but I always think of Tau as just the lifeless cyborg type Gundam robot looking army, and they have a cool look to them.
Yeah.
With the new rules, the first one they've come out with here is the for the greater good, and effectively in the shooting phase, you it's very wordy. I feel like that's what Tau. All of the rules, it's just like so many words because I'm used to orcs. Very simple. You know,
Yeah.
you
Get
go
to the
you
point.
go fast, you go crump. That's that's what it is. With the Tau is much more methodical, I think, and they have this for the greater good ability, which essentially in the shooting phase, you pick an observer unit and a guided unit, and you work in pairs. I think that's
Okay.
what this is, where you pick one
Yeah.
unit to do to observe and to point out, and then you have the other one to guide. And then you do that during the shooting phase. And so you pick this, and until the end of the phase, each time a model and a guided unit makes an attack that targets their spotted unit, that's their target, then you
Mm-hmm.
improve the ballistic skill by one. And if their observer unit has the marker like keyword, they ignore cover. And then
That's
additionally,
nice.
each time a model and the guided unit makes an attack that does not target their spotted unit, worsen the ballistic skill by one. So this core army rule is effectively rewarding you for pairing up units and
Right.
staying close together to have one unit point out and mark the enemy while the other unit attacks it and gets a bonus to it. So
Mm-hmm.
I the tower known for being a ranged shooty army, and I
Right.
think this core rule just kind of goes along with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just continuing what they've already been doing. It's gonna make a much more thinking army.
Hmm.
Maybe you can use cover better. I don't know. Like, because it's kind of hard to shoot and not be out in the open. So maybe this can help. Maybe the survivability of some of their units.
Yeah, we still don't have the terrain rules yet fully.
Right.
We've got a little bit. We've had a taste of that, but I'm interested to see, because so far the battle shock phase has really been the thing that's going to, in my opinion, weigh the battles a little bit more so than in the
Mm-hmm.
past. But I'm hopeful that they have an entire segment or section 1 week on terrain and the new rules, the new types of terrain, and how that's going to. I mean, they covered it in a few weeks ago, but I really want to
Yeah.
see some, maybe it's almost like a tactical analysis, because with the ignoring cover and things like that, I think these armies such as Tau are going to benefit from that, and I would like a deeper dive into that. But hopefully, we'll get that in the future.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The other part of this, and they got some units. They talk about the drones, which again, I'm not a Tau player. I thought the drones
Yeah.
were cool looking, and I'm reading here that in the past, the drones were not well. In the past, the drones were individual models, and now they're just treated as
Mm-hmm.
equipment on the models data sheet, which I think is interesting, but it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to keep their points down. I guess that's the other thing. We don't know what the points of all
Yeah,
these units are
that's
going to
true.
cost out down the road,
Hmm.
but um, yeah, they have neat abilities. I don't know a lot about them, so I haven't played anybody that plays them,
Well, you
so
will soon,
it's kind of
right?
hard. Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, and then for firepower, moving on down to
yeah.
the hammerhead, one of the main tanks guns for Tau, this hammerhead is the rail gun, 72-inch range, which is just insane. I mean, basically anywhere it is,
The board.
yeah, the board, you're going to have range depending on the cover. The only thing that, I look at this and they tout it like some super lethal gun, monstrous anti tank weapon, and then the ballistic skill is 4 plus. which I just don't. I don't
Yeah,
understand that with a Tau army. I thought their whole jam is ranged attack, and your big dog gun is a 4+. Really?
it seems. I mean, do you think this has anything to do with maybe a throwback to, when their codex came out in ninth edition? This was the boogeyman,
Mm, yeah,
and everybody was just really, really uptight about it. And I mean, this almost was life shattering. It felt like to the game.
yeah.
Do you think this is the little bit of the nerf
I mean,
to bring that pull that back a little bit? Do you think it's still a sore subject or?
yeah, it might be. I mean, it's the strength is powerful, AP 5,
Mm-hmm.
strength 20, and then the damage is D6 + 6, which has got the a little bit of a variable to it. But it's only one shot, so if
Yeah.
it were 3 or 4 shots at a 4+, I think it might be a little better. Again, I don't play Math Hammer, so I can't tell you all the odds and
Right.
the percentages and all that other mess. But um, just looking at the raw stats, I would think that you would need to really buff this with another unit beside it. Maybe you're playing the, for the greater good, right? You're giving a +1 to
Mm-hmm.
ballistic skill. If you have another unit that is the observer unit that's giving you the +1, so then now this becomes a
Oh.
3+, which is a little better.
Okay.
So,
It would make sense
hmm
that would be that would have those keywords.
yeah, and so you said the more of a thinking man's
Mm-hmm.
game. I think the Tau are going to be similar, where you're going to have to um, combine the ballistic skill, the 4+, with another unit next to it to really make it effective. So we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see.
And then they talk about the pulse blast cannon, which is again is another from Storm Surge, which is another powerful weapon, a little better, still
Yeah.
4+. So I think the same thing applies, where you're going to have to buff it with another unit that gives it a +1 to
Mm-hmm.
ballistic or something like that. But they spotlighted a stratagem that was really cool and interesting to me, called
Yeah, I like this one.
combat embarkation, which and I'll read the verbatim here. During your opponent's charge phase, just after they've declared a charge, so let's say I'm Orks and I'm charging into a Tau
Mm-hmm.
unit, one Tau Empire infantry unit from your army that was selected as one of the targets, and then one friendly transport, I guess would be close by, your unit
Right.
can embark within that transport using this stratagem, 1 CP. If it
Mm-hmm.
does, your opponent can select new targets for that charge. So it's got some restrictions. Every model in your Tau Empire infantry unit must be within 3 inches of that transport, and there must be sufficient transport capacity, obviously. So effectively, it's, here I come, I'm going to charge this Tau unit, and then you spend the CP and you're like, whoop, right back into the transport.
Sorry.
That's pretty cool.
Uh,
I like that.
I'd be I'd be excited if I were a Tau player for this
Yeah.
because you could use that because they're not incredibly durable
hmm
in that melee combat stuff, and I think you could do a lot of fire and move and protect your units. I mean, I assume that the transport could be a target.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, every unit can be a
eh,
target of a charge, but
mm,
you really don't, unless you've got a character unit with high AP and anti tank and all of that
mhm.
kind of stuff. You don't really want to charge a vehicle with melee per
Right,
se.
right.
So there's some interesting combos that I would say a Tau player could use and encourages them to bring in vehicles versus just a ton of infantry that are going to
Hmm.
get wiped off the map. You bring along a little shield bubble along with it, which I think is cool.
Yeah, and it kind of it maybe discourages a little bit of just spamming a bunch of big vehicles with huge
Right.
guns. Now there's a lot of synergy there. That's going to be
Yeah.
nice.
Agreed. Well, that was the Tau rules. Let's move on to the next faction, which were the Chaos Knights. And I always think the Knights, they did Imperial Knights last week, and they showed off all of the crazy firepower that the Imperial Knights are going to bring.
Hmm.
Lots of buffs to their the rerolls, the ballistic skill, and wound rolls. Chaos Knights were a little surprising to me in the fact that they didn't have as many of those rerolls and buffs to their weapons. However, um, they have a new, well, new to me anyway, the new army rule called Harbingers of Dread, and
Mm-hmm.
the overall theme of this army is that during certain battle rounds you can give off an aura, or within a certain range of your Chaos Knights unit. And so, for example, within the first battle round, you have the Despair aura. So, while an enemy was within 12 inches of this model, each time that unit takes a battle shock or leadership test, subtract one from the test. And then in the third battle round and onwards, you have a Doom and Darkness aura. Each time this model makes an attack, if the target is battle shocked, add one to the wound roll, and then each time an attack targets the model, being a Chaos Knight, if the attacking model's unit is battle shock, subtract one from the hit roll. So this theme of the army is, when you think about it, the visual of these gigantic
Mm-hmm.
creatures, these machines marching towards you, and with all the crazy horns and chains and all this other mess on top of them, and spreading dread and fear. So when I first read this, I thought, oh man, well, they don't have all of the cool firepower that the Imperial Knights do, but uh, instead they reduce your army and weaken your army instead of just
Mm-hmm.
blowing it out of the water right away. I think that this really gives the Chaos Knights faction a bit of flavor where it's different from the Imperial Knights. What do you think, Steve?
I think it. I mean, it's really cool because you're talking about an all-time, always-on 12-inch aura, and you can do. I mean, you're not talking about doing damage or anything like that, but you're taking away from your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to force your opponent to either stay away from you, which changes their tactics completely. Um, in some ways, these auras could be better than a huge, powerful weapon, right? So these they have to just be within 12 inches, which is not hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I don't know what their movement is necessarily. 10 inches.
10 inches. So it's not,
I
they're
mean,
not,
that's not terrible.
yeah, but they're not sprinting up the field either.
Right.
Um, but I don't think they should be. They should be more of a lumbering,
Mm-hmm.
hulking creature, for lack of a better term, coming up the battlefield and just making everybody run away in fear.
Mm-hmm.
And looking through some of the other abilities, they talk about the Knight Despoiler, they talk about the Knight Abominant. Number one, the models look amazing. They always have, I think. But the Warp Strike Claw, which is no slouch. 4 attacks, 3
Pretty
plus weapon
nasty.
skill, 20 strength, AP3, and damage 8. So
Mm-hmm.
again, not as crazy devastating as the Imperial Knights, in my opinion. But I think if you're walking up on another enemy and you're causing all this dread where they're battle shock is really becoming this thing that,
It's in every faction's like
yeah,
little tease,
yeah, and it's drastically changed the course of the battle and the strategy, which I always think is really cool. I'm interested to see how Chaos Knights play and how they work on the battlefield. I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be a lot of good synergies that players can combine and interact with. Plus, you can now add demons. So I was talking
That's
with a
nice.
with a friend recently, and like something cool about bringing a bunch of knights and then some little demons, jumping around. Just being a nuisance.
A bullet sponge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not bad. It looks pretty good, especially if you're a Chaos Knight player.
Yeah,
That's pretty neat.
yeah. So Chaos Knights look very cool. Next faction is not one that I'm super keen on. I know that Henry Cavill, this is his faction of choice, and I mean that's fitting. It looks very, I don't know, Supermanish, I guess. It's
Right.
got that feel to it. The Adeptus Custodes. Um, this army never really did it for me. They look a little plain. I know that's
Mm-hmm.
probably to each their own. Everybody's got their opinion. For me, this was historically been an elite army. But looking at some of the stats and some things, that's all about the stances, which allows you some flexibility where you can pick and choose what kind of buff that you're going to want a certain round. They have a 4-up invuln save, seems like everywhere, and very lethal in melee combat. So,
Yeah.
well, any thoughts, Steve, on the Adeptus Custodes?
For a minute, I thought that would make a good, secondary or tertiary or new army.
Mm-hmm.
I do actually kind of like them. I think it's just the money miser coming out in me though, because you can have a pretty big, you have a pretty strong army, and you're not like, it's probably one of the cheaper armies to field. To be honest with
Yeah,
you,
because you don't have to have as many models on there.
right, right, and but that's kind of where it sort of ran out of steam for me. I like the idea of the Sisters of Silence.
Yeah.
Kind of the blanks that you can add in.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty nice, especially if you're playing a psychic heavy army.
Mm-hmm.
They are cool lore wise and thematically, but I don't know if they don't have a lot of flavor.
No, they remind me of the old movie Flash Gordon. The crazy guys riding around. Like, that's what they remind me of.
Uh-huh.
A little bit of Flash Gordon, and looking at the artwork, they're fighting against Thousand Sons, which we now know affectionately as Circus Magicians. So,
yeah, fitting.
That's okay. We'll give them a +1 to that.
I think I will say the long lances on the bikes. Mm-hmm. It looks cool, but a little ludicrous at the same time.
Yeah, agreed. Well,
so
speaking of ludicrous, let's move on to everybody's favorite army, and by everybody I mean me. Well, second only to Votan, the Orks. I kept wondering, when they were going to. And it's funny, I get on Twitter, and whenever the official Warcom Twitter handle would release news about a new faction, like 4 or 5 people would be like, well, where are Orks? Where are the Orks? When are we going to see Orks? Well, the Orks are finally here, and I would say that they're more the same as an Orks player. Nothing blew me out of the water. It's not a bad thing. I thought Orks were in a good place before. They're just so insane and crazy, and they've kept the flavor of that. So the core army rule with the Waaaagh. And you have to scream it, but I'm not going to do that in the microphone for fear of, disturbing everyone. But you have the core army rule. So once per battle, you can call a Waaaagh. You could do that in 9th, and I really liked that theme. Of course, you had to yell it at your opponent, which was great. And then, so you get several abilities with the Waaaagh. You get you're eligible to declare a charge, and after you advance, this is only once per battle, so you really got to make sure you do it at the right time. You add 1 to the strength and attacks characteristic, and then you also get a 5-up invuln save. So it is definitely a shout, to incentivize your Ork boys and all of your troops to go get them. And one of my favorite things to do as an Ork player is just to really have the Mad Max feel and try to get up the board as quickly as possible, do as much damage as I can, and then hope to outlast. That's really the strategy. So for anybody who's thinking about Orks, if you want to play a different army, I mean, that is the strategy. You're not there you're going to get blown off the board, and that's not a problem. You just
There's no finesse.
No finesse at all. You're a blunt instrument, and you slam up against all the objectives. And you get as many points as you can right out of the gate, and then hope to outlast whoever you play against.
But that should be the way it is. I mean, that's right on the money.
Yeah, I agree.
I like it.
And some of the other stats, I don't have to spend a lot of time on Orks, and I'm not glossing over them because I don't care, because I very much care. But I do have to point out again, they're really trying to push the Stompa on us.
There's some Mrs. Buttersworth. He said,
Man,
Granny,
if
Granny
anything,
Stompa.
oh gosh, if anything needs a new model, it's the Stompa. And I want to like this thing so bad. I just can't. And they show off the spotlight. It's called the Def Cannon, and it's
Mm-hmm.
3d6 attacks, which is variable. So you could be rolling 3 attacks, or 18. But
Mm,
even then, your
right.
ballistic skills of 5 plus, not great. And then your damage is d6. So
Mm-hmm.
again, that's orc shooting for you, no problem there. The mega choppa that it has, which is the giant chain blade looking thing,
That's pretty sick.
yeah, pretty good. 6 attacks, 3 plus weapon skill, 24 strength, AP 5, and 10 damage. So
Mm-hmm.
it just release GW, just release a new model, and we'll be good. I'll go right in. You know,
I'm with you.
yep.
I could see that, but it is growing on me
No, it's
a
not. Don't
lot,
say that.
dude. The little Steamboat Willie like
Oh
smokestack,
no.
and I mean, come on, man. And the little
Oh.
guy with the hammer hitting a missile.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what could go wrong?
Okay. Well, I'm glad you enjoy it. I can't do it. Um,
Squig launcher.
yep.
That's great.
The only other thing I'll say about orcs, they I can see some combos here where if you add the Waaaagh ability where you're able to charge after you advance. Let's say you do that, plus you do a jump with your weird boy. So you jump your
Mm-hmm.
orcs up the field, and then you can you can advance on their move and then charge. But if you spend the stratagem to do the here we go stratagem, you can add
Yeah.
2 to the advance and charge roll. So it really gives you
Goodness.
this alpha strike kind of thing where you better make it, number one, because if you don't, it's kind of game
Mm-hmm.
over after that. But
Good point.
yeah, I like the idea of orcs really just kind of slamming up against them. So pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I like it.
All right, and then last but not least is the Thousand Suns just came out, and for our Circus Magician players, um, okay, I'll stop. I don't want to. I'm just messing around. They are a cool army. They have a very cool aesthetic.
They are.
I mean, Magnus looks freaking amazing. Like, I mean, come on, just it looks.
I know.
It's such a cool model. So
We all know he did nothing wrong,
no,
so
no, of course
it's
not.
cool.
um, but I think the Cabal dice that they have, which are really cool,
Mm-hmm.
allowing you to generate a pool of dice for the Cabal points, where you can then spend those to buff your army with additional psychic abilities, or rather, I guess keeping close to another psyker allows you to re-roll. You can do some fancy things with charging.
Mm-hmm.
You do these rituals, and I think I saw some abilities for, I want to say it was Ahriman, with yeah, it's got an ability to say that you can use a ritual for 0 Cabal points. So things like that. There's a lot of
Oh,
buffs
nice.
for Thousand Suns. So
Yeah.
Steve, I know you're not a Thousand Suns player, but any thoughts on the Thousand Suns faction?
For what it's worth, of the Horus Heresy novels, the Thousand Sons novel was one of my favorite.
Mm.
It was actually really, really good. Uh, that's about all I know, lore wise from the faction and stuff. I think you got to be really dedicated to this one, though. Um, it's not. It doesn't seem to be one that would be easy to play. It'd be nice and challenging. It'd be a fun challenge, but you definitely got to keep everything in mind. I think I like some of these stratagems and stuff. I love that pool of dice and those cabal points. I
Hmm.
think that's neat.
It makes it a
Um,
different feel from the rest of the armies.
yeah, it it's sort of hitting on that judgment token thing, you know.
Hey, now, well, leave the judgment tokens alone.
Hey, 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 hey.
But I I wonder how this army is going to play now that they have removed the psychic phase completely, and it is now, just the your psychic abilities are now in the shooting phase. Um, I
Yeah.
wonder how that's going to play.
What's the one down there at the bottom? Just the Psychic Dominion.
Hmm.
You can use in any phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets.
Yeah, all attacks made against your unit with psychic weapons have the hazardous ability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that the Thousand Sons army is going to be really relying on lots of different synergies with other units, and they've been that way before, but even more so now,
Mm-hmm.
where with the Cabal dice, a lot of that is predicated on the fact that you have a psyker close to you. So it's gonna, of
Right.
course, there's a ton of psychers in the Thousand Sons. So it's not like it's gonna be hard to do that.
No short supply.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But you're still going to have to be having units close by, very similar to, I would say, how Tau play, where you're going to want units to have synergies where one is targeting another. Thousand Sons are going to have to be, thinking about moving units in pairs or groups. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
other factions like Orks, for example, are just like this blunt instrument and slamming a shield against everybody. So, um,
It looks like you have some good synergy with Zinch Demon
mhm.
kind of
Yep.
units as well. So that might be add some flavor to the board.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, there's the good news is there's a ton of variety and a ton of flavor with all the different factions. So interested to see what everybody picks up, how they play, and how things shake out next week with more factions released for 10th edition. Okay, let's move on then to our final segment, which was a pretty cool thing. I wasn't originally super psyched about the Warhammer Skulls 2023 event, which is dubbed the Festival of Games. And I know Steve that you were pretty hyped about it, but they were talked about some games that are going to come out. They really came with the news, man. They had
Yeah, they
a
did.
ton of games. We'll start from the top. I want to get your take on these. The first one that they revealed was the Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin, and it's a lot of these are in alpha, so it's going to be a little while for these to come
Mm-hmm.
out. But I want to talk about this one because this is a real time strategy game, RTS, and you really don't see that many are traditional RTS games.
Mm-hmm.
And this one looks to be a traditional RTS game in the Age of Sigmar universe where, a la StarCraft, for example, where you're building up
Right.
your bases and you're getting your troops and you're setting them out for those that have played StarCraft or the old school Warcraft or, any Command and Conquer, Age of Empires, all that kind of stuff. Um, I, looking at the trailer, it is what it is. It looks like an RTS game that looks themed in Warhammer. So really cool. My question is, I wonder, and this is maybe just a topic for us to discuss. Why do you think that Games Workshop has not released more of these traditional multiplayer real time strategy type games that kind of emulate the tabletop experience?
I mean, maybe they don't want to step on their own toes a little bit. That's the only like valid reason that I could come up with. Then again, there's the video game market is. I'm not saying it's narrow, but we were talking about compared to people who like tabletop gaming,
Hmm.
they go back and forth. But I think you're either kind of in one camp wholly or in another camp wholly.
Yeah.
Um, I think you only have so much time in the day. So you gotta have to sort of pick one or the other.
But
Um,
wouldn't
it,
I mean, if you're playing an RTS game and you love it, to me that would
mm-hmm,
just make you want to get in if because those games will walk you through all the stories and the lore through each of these factions, and you get attached
mm-hmm,
to a faction. To me, that would make you want to play the tabletop. Maybe not. It doesn't always translate, of course, but um,
yeah,
I don't know what they have to lose because they're so different. Playing a tabletop game with dice and painted miniatures and having a physical product in your hand. There's a ton of people that just don't care about that. They just want the digital experience.
that's true. It may be an idea of technology getting up to speed to where they want it to be. You could put out game after game, but after a while, if the graphics are kind of crummy, or if the game engine's a little crummy, or the mechanics are a little bit
Hmm.
not quite there. I mean, is it better to wait until you have all the components? And because I mean, I'm no kidding, this trailer looked fantastic.
Yeah,
But
I don't know if that's it. I don't think it's a technology issue because I mean I was playing StarCraft, years and years and
that's
years
fair.
ago, and it doesn't have to look
Yeah.
great to still be a Warhammer themed game. I think what you said earlier about stepping on their own toes, maybe there's some fear that
Hmm.
they'll get too they'll fly too close to the sun. They'll get too close to the tabletop experience, and people will say, "Well, I don't need to play the tabletop version,
Hmm.
which is their bread and butter, in favor of the digital." But
Yeah, they're not a video game company at the end of the day, I guess.
well, I mean, after all these games, they might as well
But
be.
today, I don't know.
Yeah, they definitely
Yeah.
got the story and the characters out there to fill an entire catalog of video games. So, as
Hmm.
we're going to see here, so next game they announced was the Warhammer 40,000 Speed Freaks, which was the same
Pretty pumped.
the the same title of the Speed Freaks. It was actually a tabletop game released back,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
at 8th edition. They came out with a
Okay.
box set for Orc. This is Orks, by the way. So
Yeah.
Orc Speed Freaks is um, a type of, I guess, unit where you've got all these vehicles, and they go faster because they're painted red, of course,
Oh man.
because
Yes.
they worship either Gork or Mork. They're interchangeable. But the Speed Freaks trailer is absolutely insane, and I love it. It was so great.
I almost scrolled past it. I was like, I'm not sure about this one.
Yeah, don't
I
don't
almost like
skip
went,
this
I was
one.
like,
Don't skip it.
do not skip this one. Uh, this is no kidding, might be one of the funnest looking games of the whole day. And
I mean,
for
there's a
for
orc riding a rocket and like a cowboy. It's amazing.
a guided rocket.
A guy-
He's guiding the
he
rocket,
is.
and I just about spit my coffee on myself. I was dying, man. I was like, "Oh, this is the
Yeah,
best. There's no way you could not get this game." And
the music's
on
great too. I
Steam,
love the music in the
oh, the
trailer.
music, the music's awesome. And Steam is offering a sign up for alpha testing. So I clicked the link and said, "Hey, you're on the list." And by the end of the day, I got the email to go, "It's in your library. Go
Oh,
download it."
oh
I was
wow.
like, "Oh
Okay,
yes!"
well, I
So I
haven't
got
I
to.
haven't even done that. I'm gonna have to do that
You
right
need to
now.
do it, man. Yes.
Oh man, that's
I don't
amazing.
know what it's going to be like, but I was like, what could I lose?
Right. I mean, it looks like Mario Kart with orcs essentially, or maybe like a back in the PlayStation days, a Twisted Metal, or
Oh, I
Carmageddon.
love Twisted
For the
Metal.
old school
Yeah.
PC gamers, like it looks very much in the vein of a Twisted Metal, um, but with a little bit of a Mario Kart flavor and 100% Mad Max with the Fury Road.
Oh yeah.
Ah, uh,
Do you remember this kind of tabletop game called Car
yeah, oh
Wars?
yeah.
It goes way back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did play that a little bit, and everything was basically pencil and paper and some little cardboard cutouts and stuff. But you made your own like ramshackle car with just stuck as many guns on it as you
Right.
could. That's what this reminded me of.
Oh
It took.
man,
I mean, immediately I thought, "Oh my god, Car Wars! This is the best."
it looks
And
it
I
looks
was like,
so
"It looks
cool.
so awesome."
Yeah, I mean, so I'll put the link in the description. But man,
Oh
what an
yeah, good.
amazing trailer! And just the alpha playtest, if you want to sign up, is available from May 25th to June 8th. So make
Hmm.
sure you get in. You got a limited time, but boy, it does look really really awesome. Um, Next game up was the sequel to the original Warhammer Space Marine, and guess the title: Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. Very very
Yes,
inventive
sir.
title. Steve,
Yeah.
what have you played the original Space Marine, and then what do you think of this trailer?
I did. I played the original Space Marine when I still didn't know a thing about Warhammer. Right. I think my wife bought it for me for Christmas one year. And I played it. I loved it. It was a great game. And sadly, I think I went to one of these, used game stores and traded it in on some stuff. And I was like looking through my stack of games not too long ago. I was like, oh, I don't have it anymore. But thankfully, it's not too hard to get.
Mm-hmm.
But golly, this one is way further on than that game was. It looks crazy good. Um,
Yeah, I
I'm really looking forward to that one.
I played the original Space Marine. I got the issue of White Dwarf back. I want to say it was last year, where it included
Yep.
like 20 different codes for Steam games where you could go redeem those, and Space Marine was one of them. And I'm not a I like playing Space Marines. They're fun, but it's not my favorite faction.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually um, got into this game, and it really does make you feel extremely powerful. It makes you feel like a Space
Oh
Marine,
yeah.
and the amount of combos and just the crazy, like the execution moves that you can do. Really a cool game. So if you haven't checked out, the original one still holds up. It's got some
It does hold up.
control issues a little bit, but I would say it's a fun romp if you're looking for some mindless action.
Mm-hmm. Not a lot of exploration in it. It's more of a Hogan's Alley kind of thing. You're funneled to where you have to go.
Yeah, but that's not a bad thing.
But that's no, it's totally not a bad thing.
And it definitely gets you feel extremely powerful until you get overwhelmed. And of course, the first one's playing against orcs, and there's just waves upon waves of orcs coming at you. But you activate these abilities, and you feel very powerful when you pull off all
Mm-hmm.
these moves. And I would assume Space Marine 2 is just going to be the same thing.
It looks like a first gen, one of these new like Call of Duty style plays,
Hmm.
where everything is very intricate and smooth and immersive,
Right?
but with a Space Marine.
Yeah.
So you can't go
Yeah.
wrong.
Agreed. So one of the next games, and I'm skipping around here, but the maybe the dark horse for this one is Powerwash Simulator meets Warhammer 40,000. So I mean, I don't okay.
Strange time to be alive.
Like I've seen Lawnmower Simulator, and now Power. I'm aware of Powerwash Simulator,
I,
and
I was aware of
I
it.
guess it's that dopamine hit. I never played Power Wash Simulator, but I've watched the trailers. I guess it's just the phrase satisfying. My son says, "Oh, it's so satisfying." I guess
Mine too.
that's one of those things where you just you're cleaning away. Wow, that looks great. Kind of the feeling of
Uh,
washing your car without the actual labor. So now you get to do it in the grim dark future. I guess.
I
I
guess
mean,
it's not much of a tease, but it was. It was. I was like, what is happening?
whatever. It's fine.
But I will tell you, I've played Lawnmower Simulator, and it's
Of course
it's
you
the
have.
yeah, I had to check it out because I was like, there's no way. It's truly the fidget spinner of video games, and you just can't stop. You're like, I just spent 20 minutes mowing a yard on a TV,
Just one more
and
row. Is
I
that
can
what you?
it was very much like I know I can get closer to that flower bed, and I thought maybe I should go outside and do this in real
Is
life.
that
And
if that's not a like an advertisement for Dad Hammer? I don't know what is.
I know I can edge that
I could
driveway
get closer
better.
to. Oh my gosh. Oh, what have we
I
become,
know.
Steve? What have we become?
I'm telling you, it's a weird time to be
So
alive, dude.
sad. All right. Well, I'm gonna save ourselves and save our listeners. We'll move on from mowing lawns and power
Uh,
washing the grim dark future. Into the next game, which I was kind of sleeping on, but after watching the trailer, it looks really interesting. Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader, and this is right up my
yeah.
alley. This is a tactical RPG, kind of like a Baldur's Gate if you played that.
Okay.
But trailer was really cool, and even better is that they include the ship to ship battles, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of a game where it's mixed both the ground combat and the aerial combat, for lack of a better term. Um, but this one looked really
Nothing in
cool.
recent memory of
Yeah,
it.
I don't know if you saw the trailer for this one.
I like the aesthetic. The animation looks good. It's just a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looks like you can play. I mean, they're going for. There's probably limited factions. They only showed off a few.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just going to open it up, I would guess, to everything. But they show some factions that you can play as, and then playing against a lot of Xenos. So this one looks really neat. Don't know if this is going to be on my wish list per se, but definitely they're hitting on multiple genres here with this release
Right.
window. Um, so moving on, let's get to the big one here, and I know this is one that I don't know if you already have. You mentioned getting it, but Warhammer 40,000 bolt gun. So Steve, do you already have this one? Have you played this one yet?
Yeah,
Okay.
I got it. I bought it. I had about 10 minutes last night to play it, and I was like, "Oh, this was a good purchase." I was very happy about that. When I remember it being announced, I think last year at the last Skulls event,
hmm
and I thought about, it, I was like, "Do we need that?" I mean, I don't know. I mean, that kind of left that in the past, right? Oh no, this was it's so good because the music's good. I mean, it's just Doom or Wolfenstein. I mean,
Right.
it's nothing special, but it's just completely immersed in Warhammer 40,000. Um, but the caveat I would say is all the games that were made in those days that this one is kind of made to emulate, had clunky, interface
hmm
and controls and stuff. No, this is like a very smooth, next generation console. All the things that you like about playing on the newest console or high end PC, it's just skinned in this 16-bit
Yeah, I was about to
or
say
whatever it is.
next generation 16-bit. I feel like we're back in
It's
the Genesis and the Super Nintendo days.
but it
Genesis does
works.
what Nintendo don't. Like I feel like we
Yeah.
should be bringing that discussion back up on the playground.
But this one works so good, man. It's just gonna be fun. I just can't wait to put some time in it
Yeah, I was watching.
because
They had a
it's a no
little. They
brainer.
had a little demon jumping around, and I liked the animation of the demon is not.
It's
It's not a
awesome.
modern animation. It just like hops up in the air, like totally old
Yeah,
school,
yeah.
which I think is great. I mean, you and I both grew
And
up
you
and playing these games, so
and you have this this servo skull with a cheesy like flaming torch on its head,
yeah,
and even the fire they did it so good because it looks just like something from the mid 90s
yeah,
or late 90s that we would have had on a probably, I don't know, we would still had a floppy disk,
yeah.
probably still like a
Oh
floppy
yeah,
disk or
yeah.
something.
I had floppy disks back in the
uh
early '90s for sure. I
oh,
mean,
it's just gonna be so
they
good.
they nailed the aesthetic, and they
Yep.
did it in the 16-bit. I guess it was 16. Yeah, 16-bit.
That's what it
Maybe a
looks
little
like ish.
1632 somewhere around in there, but they nailed that, the look of it. I was looking at a couple of reviews, and that I think it's not going to win any crazy awards, but it's definitely a game that if you played games during that era, the Wolfenstein Doom era, this is and you
Hmm.
like Warhammer, this is the game for you.
And if you're a lore junkie and you want to like keep up with all those things, because even the stuff in the video games is canon and lore. This is a direct sequel to Space Marine 1,
Oh, okay,
apparently.
okay,
Like it allegedly picks up where it left off. I'm not sure how yet, but whatever. But if you're interested in that, that's kind of cool too.
very cool. And then they actually followed this announcement up with some Xbox Design Lab controllers that are themed with the
Yeah,
Ultramarine color scheme, and you know these are the Elite Wireless Control Series 2 controllers, which I mean they're fairly expensive. They're not going to be your run of the
they
mill.
are.
I think most Xbox controllers now you can probably get them on sale for $60. The black ones, just the straight black
Hmm.
controllers, but these are going to run you probably, I want to say, 150 $200 for these. These are the elite controllers, so with all the extra customized
Mm-hmm.
D-pads and the triggers on the bottom. They look really cool. I've always thought about designing a custom Xbox controller. I just can't justify it. It's just another
Yeah,
controller.
me
So,
either.
but for those that want to do that, it's there for them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they finished off the announcements with a ton of free games that the Warhammer 40,000 Gladius, however you say that, is free on
Mm-hmm.
Steam if you don't have that. And then there's some other games that had some the Talisman Digital Edition, which is on the App Store. So they announced a bunch of free games and some mobile games. But the last thing I wanted to touch on was they announced a DLC pack for the game Battle Sector.
Yeah,
And
that's exciting.
yeah, if do not sleep on Battle Sector. If
Mm-mm.
they started off with only, this was primarily a Blood Angels game where you could play as the Blood Angels faction, but they've slowly but surely added more to that game, and it is a turn-based strategy game, like very very similar to XCOM, but more in the, if you played XCOM, the tactical type game where you,
Yeah.
you take turns, you can pause, you can take your time, and then if for me, when I played Warhammer 3, the Total War games, I just thought that was just too much. Ironically, it was just too much for me to control, to
Okay.
maneuver, and Battle Sector was more my speed, where I could select a unit, very similar to
Mm-hmm.
StarCraft, but it wasn't in real time, so it was more turn based. Um, but announcing the Orks DLC, I played Battle Sector quite a bit. Steve, did you ever play Battle Sector?
Oh yeah, I've got it. I ended up getting the Necrons
Hmm.
DLC, and I think the Blood Angel Elite DLC. I think they had them on sale for like $12 or something for both of them once. It's just such a good
Yeah,
game.
really good game. I mean, I like it. To me, it gave me the feel of the Overwatch mechanic, which
Oh yeah.
when units move past you, you fire Overwatch into them and you do the damage, and very very similar to the tabletop game. But I liked Battle Sector. It was a fun game, and
Mm-hmm.
I like that they're still supporting it with downloadable
Yeah,
content.
me too.
Well, overall, the Warhammer Skulls event, I really wasn't tracking when they announced it, but man, they delivered the goods today. I mean, they hit the RTS genre, the Mario Kart
Mm-hmm.
genre with the Speed Freaks, the action adventure with Space Marine, maybe more action than adventure, but and then if you like to mow lawns, you might think about power washing as well. So now you can
Do a
do,
little power washing,
yeah,
yeah.
we'll go along with it. Um, but a little bit of something for everybody. So really impressed with the event. Very excited to play some of these games, especially with the alpha tests. So, Steve, any
Mm-hmm.
particular games that you're excited to check out? I know you've already got Bulk Gun, but anything else that you're looking forward to?
I really like the look of the Realms of Ruin. It kind of feels like Battle Sector
Yeah, a
like,
little bit.
but just Sigmar
Hmm.
a little bit. But I'm looking forward to that game. I think that'll be cool to check out. And oh, without a doubt, Speed Freaks is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, Speed Freaks is
Um,
probably my winner there. I wasn't expecting it. I like to be surprised with these kinds of events,
mm-hmm.
and this, of course, being an Orcs player, and anything Orcs with this crazy music and all of the personality of the Orcs is, especially the Orc riding the rocket, has got me very excited. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
All right, well, that will wrap our show for this episode of Dad Hammer. Lots of really cool news. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Medicae Steve. And thank you to this delicious cocktail. Hopefully, you enjoyed your Circus Magician cocktail, Steve. Was it
Yeah,
was it good? Did you
it
enjoy it?
was it was
Oh,
decent. It was
okay.
decent.
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure it'll be a repeat, but it is. It's based on Thousand Sons. What are you gonna
Oh,
do?
that's okay. That's a
Oh,
little
one
shade.
last
A
dig.
little,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. A little
Yeah,
shade
it's
never hurt anybody. That's okay. We make fun of my Votan all the time for being short, so that's okay. I
that's
can take
right.
it. Well, appreciate everyone listening. Thank you so much for your attention and your service, Medicae Steve. Thank you to this delicious old fashioned. I'm going to eat these cherries now. I am David the Warboss, and we'll see you next time on Dad Hammer. Cheers, Steve.
Take care, everybody.